In the shining sky city of Solon Prime, lights glowed like stars and buildings touched the clouds. Rich people lived in floating towers, and machines served them quietly. In the highest tower of all, a young man named Rian stood at the edge of a wide balcony, staring into the endless night. He wore a silver suit, specially made for the biggest night of his life, his engagement ceremony. But Rian didn't smile. He felt like a bird trapped in a cage, dressed for someone else's party. His father, Mr. Vorn, owned one of the largest tech companies in the galaxy. He had made a deal with another rich family. In exchange for power, Rian had to marry someone he had never even spoken to, Alara, the daughter of a cold and ambitious family. Rian had no say in it. It was tradition. It was business. But Rian didn't want that life. He wanted freedom. He wanted to explore the lower levels of the city, to meet real people, to make his own choices. Tonight, he had made a decision. A risky one. As the music began and guests gathered, Rian quietly slipped through a side door. 2 robotic guards noticed and followed him. He rushed down a private tunnel, his heart racing. The tunnel opened into an elevator, which dropped quickly through levels of the city, taking him far away from the high towers. When the door opened, Rian stepped into the lower district, a place he had only seen in old news. The air smelled different here. Neon signs flickered. People wore simple clothes. Robots were old or broken. It was loud, crowded, and alive. But Rian didn't have time to enjoy the sights. His father's drones were scanning the area. If they found his face, they would catch him. Suddenly, a group of patrol bots turned the corner. Red lights blinked. They were close. Rian panicked. He needed to hide fast. At that moment, he saw a girl walking alone, holding a shopping bag. Without thinking, Rian walked straight toward her. The drones were scanning faces nearby. Rian whispered, "Please trust me." Before the girl could reply, he pulled her close and kissed her, not out of romance, but to hide his face from the scanning bots. The drones paused, confused. They scanned, but the close contact made the image unclear. After a few seconds, they flew past. Rian stepped back quickly, breathing hard. The girl stared at him, shocked. What was that?" she asked. "I'm sorry," Rian said. "I didn't mean anything wrong. I was just hiding. Please forgive me." She looked at him carefully. "Hiding from who?" "Let's just say, people who want me to do something I don't want," Rian replied. The girl raised an eyebrow. "That's the worst explanation I've ever heard." Rian gave a small smile. "It's the truth," the girl sighed. "Fine, you look like trouble, but you also look tired. Come with me." She turned and walked toward a narrow street. Rian followed. Her name was Neela. She lived in a small room above an old repair shop. The walls were cracked and the ceiling leaked, but it was warm and safe. "You can sleep here tonight," she said. "Tomorrow you tell me the full story." Rian looked around. "Thank you, really." Neela handed him a spare blanket. "And next time you need help, try asking. Don't just kiss random people." He laughed softly. "Noted." As Rian lay down on the small couch, he stared at the ceiling. He had escaped the tower, the party, and the life he didn't want. But he had also kissed a complete stranger and entered a world he knew nothing about. And somehow, he didn't regret it. The morning light shone through the thin curtains in Neela's small room. Rian sat up on the couch, rubbing his eyes. He wasn't used to such a hard place to sleep, but somehow, he had slept better than he ever did in his golden bed at home. He looked around. The room was tiny. A shelf full of tools and old gadgets. A work table covered in wires. No robots, no smart glass, no servants. Just simple things, and the sound of a city waking up outside. Neela entered the room, holding 2 steaming cups. She wore a loose gray jacket and had her dark hair tied up. "I made synth tea," she said, handing him a cup. Thank you, Rian replied, taking it carefully. I didn't think people still boiled water by hand. Neela raised an eyebrow. We do things the old way down here. He smiled, a little awkward. I'm not used to this. I can tell, she said. Now, start talking. Who are you really? Rian looked into his tea for a moment. Then he took a breath. My name is Rian Vorn. Neela didn't react at first. Then her eyes widened. Vorn? As in Vorntech? Skynet Systems? TerraCore? Yes. My father owns them all. I'm his son. Neela stared at him. And you kissed a stranger in the middle of the street to hide from your dad? It was the drones, Rian explained. They were scanning the area. I had to do something fast. She shook her head slowly. Rich boy problems. I didn't ask to be born into that family, he said softly. They want me to marry someone for business. To give control of the company to a group of people I don't trust. So you ran away, Neela said. And came down here. I needed a real place, real people. I was tired of being treated like a machine. Neela sat down at the edge of her table. She looked at him, curious now instead of angry. You ever worked a real job? She asked. Rian shook his head. Cooked. Your own food? No. Ever been broke or hungry? No. But I want to understand. Neela leaned back, thinking. I used to be an engineer, she said. I worked in a government lab. Built neural chips and bioscanners. Then I found out my work was being used to spy on people. You quit? Rian asked. Yes, I left everything. My team, my apartment, even my ID chip. You don't have an ID? He said in surprise. Nope. Off the grid. Not easy, but I sleep better now. Rian was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at her with respect. You gave up everything for what you believed in. I just didn't want to be part of something wrong. They sat silently for a while, sipping their tea. Suddenly, Neela's small cum device blinked. News alert showed on the wall screen. Rian's face appeared, with bold letters. Heir to Vorn Empire missing. Reward offered for safe return. Neela turned to him. Well, you're officially a runaway now. Rian stood up. I can't go back. If I do, everything I tried to stop will happen. They'll force me into marriage. They'll gain control of technology that can be dangerous. Like what? She asked. Terraforming satellites. They can reshape entire planets or destroy them, Neela frowned. And they want to use it for power. Yes, she walked over to the window, thinking. You're in deeper trouble than I thought. I can leave, Rian said quickly. I don't want to bring problems to your door. But Neela shook her head. If what you're saying is true, maybe I can help. Rian blinked. Help me? Why? Because I still have my old lab codes. I know how their systems work, and someone has to stop this mess before it spreads. Rian looked at her surprised. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Neela said. We're going to need a plan. And fast. Outside, the city buzzed with noise. In the sky, a single black drone hovered, silent, watching. Rian followed Neela through the narrow streets of the lower district. This part of the city was full of life. Children playing with broken bots, street vendors selling hot noodles, and old workers fixing hoverbikes with worn hands. The smells, the noise, and the people were all so different from the cold silence of his father's tower. For the first time in his life, Rian felt free. Stay close, Neela said. You still look like a lost skyboy, Rian chuckled. What gave me away? The shiny shoes? Neela glanced at his spotless boots and smirked. That, and your confused face every time someone talks without a fancy accent. They stopped at a small food cart. The man behind it smiled at Neela. Hey, you brought a guest? He asked. Just someone who needs to learn how to live. Neela replied. The man laughed and handed them 2 cups of steaming broth. Rian took a sip and was surprised. It was simple but delicious. This is better than anything from the upper levels, he said honestly. Because it's made with care, not machines, Neela replied. Down here we work with our hands. Rian nodded, thoughtful. I was raised by machines. My tutors were AIs. My food was made by bots. No wonder everything felt fake. You were living in a golden cage, she said. They walked to an old building where Neela had set up a hidden tech room behind a locked panel. Inside were screens, tools, and a few working terminals. Rian looked around, impressed. You built all this? Most of it, she said. Some parts one found in junk markets. Others I borrowed from old jobs. She turned on a screen and tapped a few keys. A map of Solon Prime appeared. If we're going to stop your father's alliance, she said, we need to understand what they're really planning. Rian walked over. They want to activate the planetary satellite grid. On paper, it's for climate control and planet reshaping. But secretly, they're programming it to act as a weapon. Terraforming into destruction, Neela said. Change a planet's weather too fast, and you wipe out life. Rian nodded. And once they have full control, they can threaten entire cities, even other planets, for power. Neela's expression grew serious. That's not just business. That's blackmail on a galactic level. He looked at her, suddenly unsure. I know I'm not strong or trained like a fighter. I barely understand how to survive down here. But I want to help stop them. I want to do something real. She paused, then smiled slightly. You already did something real when you walked away from that fake life. That was brave. Rian gave a small smile in return. Thanks. I think you're braver, Neela shrugged. I just do what needs to be done. Suddenly, one of the screens blinked red. A warning flashed. Tracking signal detected. Neela jumped up. They found you. That drone from this morning must have scanned your biosignal. Can we run? Rian asked. Neela typed fast. No time, but I can block the signal if I use a pulse. She pulled out a small black device and pressed it. A sharp hum filled the air. Every light flickered. Then silence. Done, she said. But now they know you're somewhere nearby. They'll search block by block. Rian looked at her. I can't drag you into this. You already did, she said, grabbing a backpack, but I don't regret it. They packed quickly and left through a back exit. Outside, the streets were still busy, but overhead, black drones circled slowly. We need to go underground, Neela said. There's a tunnel system from the old MAD train lines. As they walked, Neela glanced at Rian. Still wish you kissed someone else, Rian smiled. Not at all. For a moment, Neela laughed. Their worlds were different, hers filled with wires and fire, his with glass and gold. But now, those two worlds were walking side by side, trying to stop something much bigger than themselves. And neither of them wanted to turn back. The tunnel was dark, damp, and full of old pipes. Dust floated in the air, and Rian could barely see a few feet ahead. Neela walked in front, holding a small glowing stick that lit the path. The walls were lined with faded signs, reminders of an old world that most people had forgotten. These tunnels used to be part of the old MAD train system, Neela explained. Before everything went skyward. Does anyone else use them now? Rian asked, stepping over a fallen beam. Only those who want to stay hidden. They walked in silence for a few minutes. Rian felt the weight of everything pressing down, not just the tunnel walls, but the truth he had kept hidden. Neela, he said quietly, I think you deserve to know everything. She stopped and turned. Go on. Rian took a deep breath. The reason I ran away, it wasn't just the marriage. My father and his partners are hiding something. They discovered a satellite code that controls all the terraforming systems in this part of the galaxy. Wait, all of them? Neela asked, shocked. Double quotes, yes. Not just on Solon Prime, but the nearby colonies too. They want to lock the code and sell access to the highest bidder. Neela's eyes widened. That's not just greed. That's playing with life itself. Rian nodded. That's why they wanted me to marry Alara. Her family owns the final piece of the system, the encryption key. Once the marriage is done, the deal is sealed. Neela paced in a small circle. And if that happens, they'll have power over billions of people. I couldn't let that happen, Rian said. So I ran. Neela looked at him for a moment, her eyes serious but calm. You did the right thing. But now that they know you're gone, they'll do anything to get you back. I know, Rian said. That's why I need your help. You know how these systems work better than anyone. Neela didn't answer right away. She stared down the tunnel, thinking hard. I used to design systems like that, she finally said. My lab worked on secure data links between orbital satellites. But when I found out they were using my designs to monitor people, I quit. I never thought I'd face it again. You don't have to, Rian said quickly. If it's too dangerous. No, Neela interrupted. I'm not running anymore. If I help you, maybe I can fix what I helped build. They continued walking until they reached a metal door with a digital lock. Neela tapped a code into the panel, and it opened with a hiss. Behind it was a small, hidden room with old computers, power cells, and rolled-up maps of satellite paths. This was part of my backup lab, Neela explained. I used it after I left the main facility. Rian looked around, impressed. You've built more with scraps than most companies do with trillions of credits. She smiled slightly. Down here, we learned to make do. Neela booted up one of the systems. The screen flickered to life, showing a rotating model of the planet and a web of satellites in orbit. This, she said, pointing, is the network your father is after, but it's more vulnerable than they think. If we can access the main relay point, we can rewrite the access code. That would stop the deal? Rian asked. Yes, without the correct code, the system resets. It will take years to rebuild it. Rian nodded. Where is the relay? Neela zoomed in on the screen. It's on an orbital station called Zenith. Point, high security. Only authorized tech crews go there. Then we'll need a way to get aboard. Neela looked at him. I might know someone. But he's not exactly friendly. I'll take any chance we can get, Rian said. We don't have time, Neela nodded. Then we leave tomorrow. Rest now. Tomorrow we climb back into the sky. As Rian settled into a corner of the room, he looked at Neela, strong, smart, and standing with him against an empire. He had kissed her to escape. Now he stayed because he believed in her. The next morning, the sky over the lower district was gray. Clouds hovered low, and winds swept through the narrow streets. Neela and Rian stood outside a rundown building near the edge of the sector. You sure he'll help us? Rian asked. No. Neela replied honestly. But he owes me. They entered a dark hallway and climbed old metal stairs. At the top, a heavy door opened, and a large man stood in the doorway. His face was full of scars, and one of his eyes was replaced with a glowing red lens. Neela, he said with a rough voice. Didn't expect to see you again. Hello, Tarn, Neela said. I need a favor. Tarn looked at Rian, then back at her. And who's the prince? Someone who wants to stop a dangerous plan. Inside, the room was full of spare ship parts, broken weapons, and blinking monitors. Tarn sat down and crossed his arms. Talk, Neela explained the situation. The satellites, the wedding, the space station. Tarn listened, saying nothing. Finally he stood up. I've got a transport ship. Small, fast, hard to track. Can it get us to Zenith Point? Rian asked. Tarn nodded. Maybe, but once you're there, you're on your own. That place is crawling with guards. We can handle it, Neela said confidently. Tarn looked at her with respect. You haven't changed. Later that night, the ship was ready. It was old, patched but strong. As they waited inside, Rian looked out the window. "You really built all this from nothing," he said. Neela smiled. "People down here build more than the rich ever imagine. We fix, we fight, we survive." "I used to think money could solve anything," Rian said. "Now I know how wrong I was." She looked at him, eyes soft. "You're changing." Rian nodded. "Because of you." The ship lifted off, leaving the lower district behind. As they rose into the dark sky, their mission became clear. Together, from two different worlds, they were about to challenge the most powerful people in the system, and there was no turning back now. The ship moved silently through the dark sky, flying higher and higher until the clouds disappeared. Rian stared out the window as stars filled the view. This was his first time leaving the planet without permission, without guards, and without anyone giving him orders. Across from him, Neela checked her tools and devices. Her fingers moved fast, connecting wires and adjusting scanners. Her focus was strong, but Rian noticed her hands were shaking slightly. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I'm fine," she replied. "Just a little nervous." "Zenith Point isn't a friendly place." Tarn, the pilot, spoke through the speaker. "We'll dock in 20 minutes. Stay quiet, don't attract attention. I can't save you if things go bad up there." Rian and Neela nodded. They both wore gray uniforms now, stolen from an old supply crate. With hats pulled low and fake ID tags, they looked like regular tech workers. As the ship approached Zenith Point, the massive space station came into view. It was shaped like a ring, with solar panels stretching out like arms. Lights blinked across its surface. This was the brain of the satellite network, the place where everything could be controlled or destroyed. The ship connected to a docking bay. The door opened with a hiss. Rian and Neela stepped out into a bright hallway. Other workers passed by, holding tools and speaking quietly. Cameras lined the ceiling, but their IDs worked for now. "We need to reach the central server room," Neela whispered. "It's 2 floors down." They walked quickly, heads low, acting like they belonged. Rian carried a toolbox while Neela held a small scanner that hid her hacking device inside. As they reached a side door, Neela used her device to unlock it. The door slid open, and they entered a narrow stairwell. "Almost there," she said. But just as they began to go down, a loud sound echoed through the station. A warning alarm. Red lights flashed. Doors began to lock. "What's going on?" Rian asked, alarmed. Neela checked her device. Her face turned pale. They triggered a silent scan. "Someone found a trace of my old lab signature. They're looking for us." Suddenly, heavy boots echoed from above. "Security guards." "We can't go back," Neela said. "We have to move now." They rushed down the stairs and reached the lower hallway. The walls here were lined with data cables. A large steel door stood at the end, the main server room. "Cover me," Neela said, pulling out her tools. As Rian watched the hallway, Neela worked fast. Sparks flew as she opened the panel and connected wires. The door beeped and opened. Inside, rows of glowing servers hummed. In the center was the master control terminal. Neela ran to it and connected her device. "I can block the code from being activated, but I need 5 minutes." Outside, footsteps were getting closer. Rian grabbed a heavy pipe and stood near the door. "Do what you need to." "I've got this," he said. Neela's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm sending a fake signal to their system. It'll show the code is already in use. They'll think it's corrupted." Suddenly, 2 guards appeared at the door. "Hey, step away from the panel." Rian stepped forward. "Stay back." The guards raised stun sticks and rushed at him. Rian swung the pipe. He blocked the first attack, but the second guard shocked his arm. He winced in pain but didn't fall. He pushed back hard, knocking the guard against the wall. Neela yelled, almost done. Rian held his ground as the second guard lunged again. He dodged and hit the guard in the leg. The guard dropped. Then silence. Neela stood up, breathing hard. It's done. The control path is broken. They can't use the satellite codes anymore. Rian looked at her with pride. You did it, she smiled. We did it. More guards were coming, but the mission was complete. Neela sent a final command, a signal to all public networks revealing the plan of Rian's father and the marriage deal. The truth is out now, she said. They can't hide anymore. They ran toward the emergency escape pods. The sky had tried to trap them, but they had fought back, together. The escape pod shook as it sped away from Zenith Point. Inside, Rian and Neela sat side by side, their hearts still racing. Outside the small window, the station grew smaller as the pod moved toward the planet below. Rian looked at Neela. Her hands were scratched, her hair messy, but her eyes still burned with strength. You were amazing back there, he said quietly. She gave a tired smile. We both were. After a few minutes, the pod entered the upper atmosphere. Heat wrapped around the metal walls, but the systems held steady. They were safe, for now. When the pod finally landed on a quiet hill outside the city, Neela opened the hatch. Cool wind rushed in, and the stars above blinked calmly. It was peaceful, far from noise, far from towers and control. They walked toward a small cabin Tarn had prepared earlier, just in case something went wrong. Inside, there was only a table, a radio, and 2 chairs. But it felt like a home, even if just for a while. Neela sat down and turned on the small news screen. The headline made her freeze. Exposed. Vorn family's secret deal to control terraforming system. A video played, showing satellite images, documents, and even parts of the conversation from inside Zenith Point. Neela's signal had worked. Everyone knows the truth now, Rian said. We stopped them. Neela didn't speak for a moment. Then she whispered, we started something big. Suddenly the radio beeped. Rian picked it up. A familiar voice spoke. Rian, this is your father. Rian's smile faded. I know where you are. I'm not angry. In fact, I want to talk. In person. Come to the tower. No guards, no tricks. Just you and me. The message ended. Rian looked at Neela. Should I go? She stood up. It's your choice. But I'm coming with you. Later that evening, a private car brought Rian and Neela to the highest tower in Solon Prime. The streets were quiet, and people watched from windows and screens. They knew what had happened. The truth had shaken the city. Inside the tower, everything was still clean and perfect. Polished floors, shining lights, and silence. Rian's father, Mr. Vorn, stood in the center of the large hall. You made quite a mess, Mr. Vorn said, his voice calm but cold. I told the truth, Rian replied. You could have talked to me. We could have handled this quietly. No, Rian said. You were going to sell power to people who don't care about anyone. You used me like a tool. Mr. Vorn looked at Neela. And who is she? Your rescuer? Or the one who pulled you away from your path? She's the one who showed me what matters, Rian said proudly. And we won't let people like you control everything. For a moment, Mr. Vorn was silent. Then he gave a small nod. Fine, you win this time. The deal is broken. The partners have pulled out. My name is damaged, but not destroyed. He walked closer and lowered his voice. But I'm still your father. Come back. Forget this rebellion. Take your place beside me. I'll give you full control. You can shape the company your way. Rian looked at Neela, then back at his father. You don't understand, he said. I don't want your empire. I want a new life, one where people matter more than power. Mr. Vorn stared at him. You would throw all this away? For what? For freedom, Rian replied. He turned and walked away. Neela followed. They stepped outside the tower as the sun began to rise. The city glowed gold. People were waking up to a new day, a better one. Rian looked at Neela. Are you ready? She smiled. More than ever. And together, they walked into the light, no longer a rich heir and a street engineer, but two people who changed everything.